There is a city, cut through by the river that made it, streets twisting like liquid veins from a bird's eye view. In the city, losing your bearings means you're either drunk or high or doing it on purpose. This is the city of the marooned and the exiled, the dreamers and the sanguine, the hungry, the curious, of people who see constant evidence of human displays of being. They don't know why. We don't know why. The city I'm talking about is the city of those who call you up in the middle of the week to ask if you're up for a little protest Saturday afternoon before drinks and the concert. You say yes always. What's it about this time? You ask each time. But you know it's always something important. The causes to march for are inexhaustible in this city. This is a city that yearns and obsesses. Paris. You read the word and sensory connotations trail behind your first thought like a string of garden lights at dusk. Paris. You read it again, and there it is. That thing, that feeling, that nostalgia, almost, for a city you might never even have visited. But you know it anyway. You know Paris. You know it's nothing like you think it is, and everything you think it is.
Bye. Are you gonna put this on your YouTube?
Maybe.
Okay, that's cool.
Thanks, Norin.
You're welcome. Oh, it's so pretty. It's
Say hi.
Hi. Hi. Oh, I love it.
Si tu filmes ton pantalon cool.
Oh my gosh.
Ah, what a charming ride to leave a gloomy countryside for Paris. Lovely Paris, which long ago love must have found beautified. Ah, what a charming ride to leave a gloomy countryside for Paris. As you may have guessed, I am in Paris. I just arrived in my Paris abode, not mine, but where I'll be staying for this particular trip. Coincidentally, it has a beautiful little collection of books, a little library. We have all of the French classics, André Malraux, we even have Colette, which we'll be talking about because I brought a Colette book with me. Jack Kerouac, Sophocles, Thomas More, Balzac, Dumas, Flaubert, Hemingway, Romain Gary, Albert Camus. It's quite dark right now. I don't know how great the lighting is, but I was too excited. I wanted to talk about this trip, to introduce it somehow. So I will be presenting you several parts. I'm not sure if it's going to be 3 or 4 parts. Probably 3. A 3-part series on Paris bookstores, books to read about Paris that I have read and have loved, and also books that I want to read that I have not yet read, which are part of my to-be-read pile of Paris books or books on Paris. I have a bit of a fetish, not just because I actually grew up in Paris for most of my life. I just find the city so... I don't know, it's such a rapture to come here every time. And I know it sounds cliche, and I'm kind of like against cliches in general, or I kind of try to go as authentic as possible, but it is undeniable. The spirit of Paris is intoxicating. The streets are beautiful. There are so many different arrondissements with so many different vibes. I love discovering how a city evolves. I love reading about how the city was 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago. I just can't believe that this city has seen so many wars, the Nazis marching in, Napoleon, the beheading of kings in the French Revolution, May 1968, where students were protesting and throwing pavements at the police, and still today it's a very tumultuous, tempestuous city, a city made for marching and protesting and walking freely and being crazy and mad and kissing under the full moon and walking along the Seine. You can romanticize Paris all you want, but the truth is it's a very romanticizable city. Freud found Rome really interesting because of its multitudes, because of the layers, and that he compared it to the layers of your psyche, of your personality. Personality, that's not exactly the same thing, isn't it? But I would say psyche, the different layers of the psyche, and I definitely see Paris like that. And what's fascinating is that every time I go to Paris, every time I come back to Paris, because I don't live here anymore, I come to visit friends, but I also come to find myself. I very much come here to contemplate. My romanticism has been exacerbated by reading tons of books about Paris, especially the books that our dear American expats have written, such as Hemingway. Yeah, of course, my vision of Paris has been molded by all the stuff that I've read and seen and heard, and even though I'm, let's say, partly Parisian, I'm also highly influenced by American culture and by Anglo-Saxon literature, which has often found Paris to be a place to ignite creativity and madness and everything, every kind of ingredient that goes into the making of an ideal in your head. And so exploring Paris while kind of deconstructing and dismantling the idealisms that I have had about myself, about life, about the world, about cities, and everything. It's just coming to Paris for that is just perfect. And I am here to visit the bookshops that I haven't visited yet. I'm here to also visit the bookshops that I have visited many times, countless times, every time I go to Paris. Now, I will do a little book haul and in the end talk about the books that I got from these bookshops. Just gonna be book-themed Paris holiday, and I'll bring you with me for the ride. I've been blabbering, but I'm just super excited. I already want to talk to you about the books that I brought that are books I want to read about Paris, but I haven't yet read. But I think I'm going to reserve that for tomorrow when the day's bright, when the light is better, and where I can show you around a bit where I am. Now it's time for me to go to sleep, chill, and enjoy my solitude. Mothers, you will know what I'm talking about. Good night! And look at all these books. Maybe we should go through them before we leave. So yeah, the time to actually go through the bookshelf was the next day, directly after. I loved it so much. I actually didn't anticipate having such a beautifully stacked bookshelf when I booked this place on Airbnb, so it was a wonderful surprise. And yeah, I found some really cool books, Simone de Beauvoir and all the books I already mentioned, and beautiful artwork. I thought this place was the kind of place that I would actually love to have in Paris. I also coincidentally found a feminist book there that was already there, which I thought was a sign, because I also came to Paris to make a video on feminist books to read if you're new to feminism, which I have posted in my channel. So it was a pretty rainy day the first day, so I decided to just read most of the time. I had to finish the book Feminism is for Everybody by Bell Hooks, which is a great book. Again, I talk about it in the video that you can find on my channel. It was pretty fun to sit in this beautiful fluffy chair, very aesthetic. I felt like I was in a dream. It was a really good way to start the trip. Even though it was rainy, I just was in a cozy place, so it was pretty perfect, actually. So part one of this video series is just gonna be a little bookstore tour and a little vlog. So the first bookstore is Smith & Son, which was previously W.H. Smith. They became an independent bookstore, so that's really cool. I love this bookstore because everything is quite laid out pretty well. It's really good for sort of genre fiction. There's a wide array of science fiction, of feminism, of biography. There's a really cool kids section at the top. So I met up with my friend Juliet, so we immediately went to the feminist section. Also, kudos to them to have a very clear section on books about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, which is the only bookstore that I visited on that trip that actually had a whole feature of those kind of books, which I thought was great. You have memoirs and history books. So Juliet, of course, bought some little snacks, which you can find there as well, which is why I love that bookstore. Next stop, we actually just went to visit a friend of mine, Marie, who is a leather goods creator, maker, designer. I don't know how you say that exactly. So Julian and I had a little fashion interlude to go and see her beautifully working on her leather, and that was a nice little break from all the books. But then of course we went to see more books. Next stop is Galignani, which is also in Rue Rivoli, and I think it's probably my favorite bookstore just because it's so pretty inside. I suggest not to come in the weekends for any of these bookstores because it's just too full. There's so many people, unless you love the fact that you see a lot of people around you salivating over books, as you do as well. So Juliet and I spent a good amount of time here, and I found a beautiful Natalia Ginzburg essay collection in French, which I had never heard of before. And that's when I thought maybe I should read Natalia Ginzburg in French because it's actually closer to Italian. But yeah, anyway, I didn't get that one. I wanted to. Probably I will next time. And yeah, it's just a beautiful bookstore. What I love about this bookstore as well is the beautiful ceiling, just the class, the fact that they have such a wide array of art books. I think it's one of their specialties in Galignani, it's the art books, and a beautiful English department, as well as a lovely children's corner. The children's section is not as big as Smith & Son, where you can find a much larger array of kids' books, but they have beautiful choices for classic cloth-bound books, which I think are beautiful, and if I had all the money in the world, I would just buy them all and have my own little collection. And what I love about this place as well is that their poetry selection is gigantic. They have those beautiful, I think it's the Everyman editions for the poetry, and I love looking for translated fiction here as well because it's so well categorized. You have translated Russian literature, translated Italian literature, and for the fiction part, it's just on 2 floors and just perfect. I love it. I love Galignani. You should go there. So after a long day walking, I just decided to chill tonight. It's gonna be great. Chilling, smoking a cigarette, talking on the phone. I don't even remember who I was on the phone with. Probably either my brother or my partner. But anyway, to embellish this a little bit, I'm gonna read a poem by Billy Collins that I really love called The Best Cigarette. And it's written from the perspective of him when he's obviously already stopped. So I take refuge in the knowledge that a lot of my favorite authors write about it. The best cigarette, the last cigarette. The best cigarette. There are many that I miss, having sent my last one out a car window, sparking along the road one night years ago. The heralded ones, of course, after sex, the 2 glowing tips, now the lights of a single ship. At the end of a long dinner, with more wine to come, and a smoke ring coasting into the chandelier, or on a white beach, holding one with fingers still wet from a swim. How bittersweet these punctuations of flame and gesture. But the best were on those mornings when I would have a little something going in the typewriter, the sun bright in the windows, maybe some Berlioz on in the background. I would go into the kitchen for coffee, and on the way back to the page, curled in its roller, I would light one up and feel its dry rush mix with the dark taste of coffee. Then I would be my own locomotive, trailing behind me as I returned to work, little puffs of smoke, indicators of progress, signs of industry and thought. the signal that told the 19th century it was moving forward. That was the best cigarette, when I would steam into the study, full of vaporous hope, and stand there, the big headlamp of my face pointed down at all the words in parallel lines. Isn't Billy Collins just such a wonderful, beautiful poet? I love him. I just discovered him not so long ago, and I just can't get enough. Billy Collins, one of my new favorite poets, faux shows. On this smoky thought, I then went to bed for the night. What's great about Parisian mornings is when the sun is out and the only thing you can do is have a broken voice, lay in the sun wherever the sun hits the spot in the apartment, and read with coffee. Magnificent. So I always do this in the morning. It's my thing. I wake up, I take a cup of coffee, and I read a book. That is, if I don't have anywhere to go. And it's, for me, this is pure pleasure. This is what pleasure is, what pleasure should be like. This is what life is for. Drinking coffee in the morning in the sunshine with a book. I got this yesterday or 2 days ago at Galignani, which is a bookstore in Paris. Took some shots, and I've been meaning to read it. It's Écrire by Marguerite Duras. I decided not so long ago that every time I came to Paris, I would try to read in French as opposed to in English, which is my usual. But this has an English translation. It's simply Writing by Marguerite Duras. It's great. I love it. I really like it. C'est curieux en écrivant. C'est une contradiction et aussi un non-sens. Écrire, c'est aussi ne pas parler. C'est se taire. C'est hurler sans bruit. C'est reposant en écrivant. Souvent, ça écoute beaucoup. Ça ne parle pas beaucoup parce que c'est impossible de parler à quelqu'un d'un livre qu'on a écrit et surtout d'un livre qu'on est en train d'écrire. C'est impossible. C'est à l'opposé du cinéma, à l'opposé du théâtre et autres spectacles. C'est à l'opposé de toutes les lectures. C'est le plus difficile de tout. C'est le pire. Parce qu'un livre, c'est l'inconnu. C'est la nuit, c'est clos, c'est ça. C'est le livre qui avance, qui grandit, qui avance dans les directions qu'on croyait avoir explorées, qui avance vers sa propre destinée et celle de son auteur, alors anéanti par sa publication, sa séparation d'avec lui, le livre rêvé, comme l'enfant dernier-né, toujours le plus aimé. That was great. Next up, we're gonna do some bookish things along Saint-Michel, which actually used to be my favorite part of Paris. I just love the Quartier Latin. Although the last time I went, which is this time that you're seeing right now, I thought there was just so many people and it just kind of lost its charm for me. However, I do think that the arrondissement is one of my favorite ones. So just if you kind of go beyond the streets where all the tourists roam, you have the beautiful village of Paris, you know, and I just love that. I just think it's so charming. First stop is the Bouquinistes de la Seine. So they're the booksellers who sell secondhand and antiquarian books, postcards, and other collectibles from the green boxes that you can see along the banks of the river of the Seine. So they actually started in the 16th century with a really fascinating history. So this tradition of selling books along the Seine, it started informally with itinerant booksellers who actually displayed their books on the parapets of the Seine's bridges. And in the 17th century, the authorities attempted to regulate the trade, but the booksellers continued to operate in a semi-legal way. And in the 19th century, it was finally legalized under Napoleon III, and they were granted licenses to operate their stalls permanently. Today, there are over 200 bouquinistes operating around 900 green boxes. Some of them even write books that they sell or that they have independent bookstores along the Seine or around the Seine sell for them, which is wonderful. So next, I went to Shakespeare & Co., but I feel like I don't even have to tell you about it. I just decided I didn't want to go inside because the queue was enormous, as it always is. Again, I suggest not going here on the weekends. there's gonna be a smaller queue during the weekday, but anyway, I just thought I would skip that part and just go straight to La Fourmi Ailée, where Juliet again was waiting for me with her boyfriend Valentin, and it's a beautiful little tea salon with a lot of books around, and I just thought it had such a magical vibe that if you ever are in Paris, you need to know about this place. Also, they have really good onion soup and a very good French menu. After that, we decided to go to one of Juliet's favorite bookstore, actually, which I also love, which is the Abbey Bookshop. It is a beloved English language bookstore, and it's actually really near Shakespeare & Co. And I prefer to go here because I feel like I can find more interesting books. It was founded in 1989 by Canadian Brian Spence, and it quickly became a haven for English-speaking bibliophiles in Paris. It's housed in a 13th century building. It has thousands and thousands of books. I think it's like over 30,000 or 35,000 new, used, and rare books, and it really has this cozy, labyrinthine atmosphere, and visitors are often greeted with a warm welcome and a cup of Canadian coffee that you can find outside usually, and it really makes it a unique experience. I think it really gives you this sort of, I don't know, if you're a bibliophile, this is such a treasure of a place. It's really the kind of bookshop where I think you can expect to kind of find sort of a treasure, and you can also find popular books if you're looking for things that are more known. But I just love this spirit of just going through the shelves and finding something you would have never expected to find, or something you've never heard of, or something that you know you would never find anywhere else, or very rarely. And that's the magic of used bookstores, and I just love it. And just when you thought that you've seen more than enough and that you have more than enough choices already, there is a floor downstairs where I found Juliet, actually, who had collected a ton of books. She says that every time she comes here, it's just an inevitable fate, which I understand completely. And it's just perfect, like all these piles and piles and piles. I couldn't get enough of it. I stayed probably 2 hours at least. Thank you for watching so far. The adventure continues in part 2, where I'll be talking about books on my TBR about Paris, and I'll be touring around Paris bookish stuff a bit more. So there's more to explore. See you soon.